Good to see you.
Okay, if everybody has settled in and they've got their cup of tea, we're just waiting on a few more, but we'll make a start. I'm just going to go back to screen sharing now. We're live videoing this session. Just to say a very, very warm welcome to you all. Thank you so much for joining our launch of the Invest Mentoring Programme. Just to remind everyone to please keep yourselves muted. The event is being recorded and a link will be sent out to everyone who's registered. There'll be a question and answer time at the end of this session. So just a little overview of today's agenda. Introductions. We've got our three partners. We've got the Gloucestershire Community Foundation, which is myself representing, and Andrew Tabor, who's the chair of our community support group at the Honourable Company of Gloucestershire. And we've got Marie Langan, who is our project manager for the Southwest from the Cranfield Trust. We'll do an overview of the programme, which is supporting charity leaders, ideally matching them with a mentor for 6 months, and we'll go through the process and the detail of that. And then a bit of an overview of what mentoring is, what it is and what it isn't. We have a case study where Gemma Amadel, who's on this session from WAM Youth, you may have heard of her, but we'll be watching a wonderful film of her and her mentor, which is really inspiring and captures the work that went on in the pilot scheme. So moving on, the Gloucestershire Community Foundation, as an introduction for those of you who don't know us, we've been going for around over 30 years now in the county. We're part of a UK network of 47 community foundations, all working in place-based funding for grassroots community groups and organisations. And at the heart of GCF and community foundations is partnership and collaborative working. As Andrew mentioned shortly, way back before my time at the start of 2019, GCF introduced the Cranfield Trust and the Honourable Company, where a mentoring pilot scheme was born. So partnerships take time to grow and develop. However, they can be incredibly impactful and wide-reaching, which is what we hope to show today. Three wonderful organisations coming together and just the work we can do to support our county. So today we're here to talk about how we have come together and to launch an official mentoring programme to benefit Gloucestershire charity leaders. To support the need for this activity, Charity Leaders told us through our GCF research recently, as well as funding, there was really other practical support that's needed to help in these challenging times, along with helping to facilitate partnerships, collaborations, marketing, social media, and mentoring was mentioned. So those who were mentoring, in terms of those who answered the need for mentoring, around 25 charity leaders who answered the survey did say they would really benefit from mentoring. So today we're very excited to be launching the official Invest Mentoring Programme as a partnership. So to introduce, I'll pass over to Andrew Tabor, who is from the Honourable Company of Gloucestershire.
Thank you, Talitha. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the Honourable Company, because I suspect for quite a few of you, it's not known at all. Well, the company was set up in 2007 to capitalise on all that is best in the county of Gloucestershire, and that incorporates Gloucestershire and South Gloucestershire, for the benefit of the whole community. The company focuses in particular on support for business, education, charities and voluntary organisations, sports, arts and heritage, and the armed forces. And it works through its members to encourage the development of leadership and advance debate on key issues. In particular, the company promotes and rewards excellence and the development of young people, particularly in the areas of science, sport, and youth organisations. It sponsors the arts and heritage. It supports units of the armed forces, both regular and reserve, cadets, and relevant supporting organisations. It furthers links with the voluntary sector, and this of course has included mentoring smaller charities. It furthers links with public services, schools, colleges, universities. And it promotes the annual Gloucestershire Lecture for a county-wide audience on subjects of national importance or interest. And recent subjects have included GCHQ, 'Law and Order, Sustainability, and the future for rural Gloucestershire. and it supports major civic and social events across the county. And our members come from a wide variety of backgrounds, so we're able to utilise their personal and professional networks to further the company's objectives. Charitable activity is central to the Honourable Company's work across the county. And although not shown in this slide, in 2012, the Honourable Company of Gloucestershire Charitable Trust was set up to serve the community, and it's a further demonstration of the commitment by members to the objectives of the company. And since its formation in 2012, the Trust has made grants of over £170,000. So next slide, please. So where did the idea for a mentoring project originate? I'm sure that other organisations have had similar thoughts, but some 2.5 years ago, the Honourable Company's Community Support Group, which I chair, discussed how the company could assist the voluntary sector in addition to the grants from the Charitable Trust. And the general belief was that our members were well placed to bring their experience and individual skills in an advisory capacity to charity leaders, and that there was a genuine need there. The question then remained how best to publicise and deliver the project. And this is where GCF came in, advising us to contact Cranfield Trust, which by chance has the Princess Royal as its patron, as does the Honourable Company. Cranfield Trust and the Honourable Company decided to run a pilot project in 2019-2020, with Cranfield Trust training the volunteer members from the mentors from the Honourable Company, and then matching them with charity leaders. Initially, the Honourable Company approached Charities, which had received grants from its charitable trust, but both GCF and Cranfield Trust also helped in finding charity leaders who might benefit from mentoring. And during that pilot project, 6 charity leaders were successfully mentored during that period. I'll now hand on to Marie Langan, who will tell you more about mentoring.
Fantastic, thank you, Andrew. And yes, my name is Marie Langan, and I'm the project manager for the Southwest for the Cranfield Trust. And I'm based in Bristol and work across Gloucestershire, have lots of charities that we help in Gloucestershire. And the Cranfield Trust, for a little background for people that don't know us, we're a charity that helps other charities. We've been around 30 years as well, so we're twins to the Gloucestershire Community Foundation, same age. And what we do is we provide pro bono management consultancy to small charities across the UK. And we originally did that as an alumni group of the MBA programme at Cranfield Business School, which is part of Cranfield University. So you might recognise the name from there, but it's grown beyond that now. Now there's no need to be an alumni of Cranfield or have an MBA, as long as you're a professional with some skills that you're willing to give back to to support your community. You can become a Cranfield Trust volunteer, and we use our volunteers to deliver those projects across the UK. So those consulting projects are typically business planning, strategic development, IT, governance, marketing, finance, all the sort of traditional management consultancy. But we also provided one-to-one mentoring, but we never really formalised our offering until a couple of years ago, where we realised that we needed to kind of put something formal in place, mainly to address that whole issue of what is mentoring, what it is, what it isn't, because people often confuse it with coaching and all sorts of other activities. So we formalised our mentoring service, and we've worked with Professor David Clutterbuck, who's a mentoring guru. If you haven't seen his website, have a look at it. He's a really interesting guy, and he's helped us greatly in developing our mentoring offering. And this consists of matching our volunteers with charity leaders according to their skill sets, where they are, geography, their interests and experience, and just making sure there's a good chemistry there. And then overseeing the training of the mentors and supporting the mentor and mentee during the project, just to check in and make sure that the conversations are of a good quality. And then at the end of the project, gathering feedback and evaluating the impact of the mentoring relationship. So for us, it's very much what we do. We've just kind of formalized it recently, and it's interesting because some people have said, since we've put more formality around it, actually the quality of the conversations has been a lot better and has been a lot more informal and a lot easier, which is interesting, because I think if you didn't have an end date to a mentoring relationships, it might just wander and go off track a little bit. So putting some framework around it, and that includes setting a time limit to the number of sessions, etc., has made it more formal. So the next slide, and I'll talk a little bit more about mentoring. So we decided the way we define mentoring and the way it's defined on this program is very much to support charity leaders. They're in a difficult place. It's a very rewarding role. What they do is vital, especially at the moment, but it is a very lonely place. It can feel quite isolating. And also you can be too close to your issues sometimes to be objective, and you really can value the perspective of an outside pair of eyes. So our volunteer mentors will be that person that will help the charity leaders to see things differently and maybe think about things differently. So if you are a charity leader and you're checking in on this webinar today to find out a little bit more about how this can help you, I think that the help is right there. It's in helping you to solve a particular issue that you've got going on at the moment, or just to think a little bit differently about how you approach issues that arise in your organisation. Something I can just see questions come up about small charity. We will come to that when we talk about the programme. So a little slide I think we decided to put in because I think it's a really interesting differential between mentoring and coaching. Coaches and mentors have a lot in common for sure, and some of the skills are very similar, but the content of the conversation is often very, very different, because mentoring is about the individual's future professional and career development. So it's very specific to the individual, whereas coaching can be focused on a person's performance in their role and their ability to meet agreed targets. So it could be around performing a particular task. If you think about a football coach or a golf coach or whatever, it's about improving a particular activity and working on that. So mentoring, the difference is mentoring is mentee driven. The mentee always owns the agenda. The mentee comes to us because they want mentoring, and they will tell us what goals and objectives they want to achieve. Whereas coaching, it's often the line manager or another person in the organisation who will come to us and say, somebody needs coaching, and that's very different. The coaching agenda is different. Hope that clears it up. But if there are any questions as we go along, we will have Q&A at the end. So if anybody wants to ask any questions, that's absolutely fine. I think over to you now, Talitha, on the programme.
Thanks, Marie. So just an overview of the programme. This is about collaborating to support small charities and voluntary groups in Gloucestershire. We'll be providing one-to-one mentoring to 10 charity leaders, which will help impact their communities. So I think a bit about the research we've done and the challenges around isolation for leaders, not necessarily having someone independent to talk to, but really challenging times to think about the future and having someone completely independent to talk those things through. So for charity leaders, you're a CEO or leading an organisation, a member of the senior management team or a chair or trustee, using volunteer mentors from the county. They'll be selected for their leadership skills in the private, public and charity sectors. And you'll hear slightly later about the value of a mentor that's not necessarily in your sector. Volunteer mentors will also benefit from training and support from the Cranfield Trust. So it's a wonderful opportunity for somebody who's been really successful in business to get an extra skill set around mentoring and actually receive some professional training from the Cranfield Trust. So becoming a mentor. So recruitment's underway. Andrew Tabor has done a brilliant job. He's already lined up 10 members of the Honourable company, which have signed up for the programme, and we are looking for more. So please do apply. But just to say, we're well on our way to getting this programme launched. There's a short application process. The experience we're looking for includes leadership and strategic direction, people management and business planning. It's also really important to be a good listener. Online training material will be provided by our partner, Professor David Clutterbuck, and the support provided by the Cranfield Trust before and during the mentoring relationship. So becoming a mentee, charities need to fit the eligibility criteria for this programme, addressing the needs of poverty, disability or social exclusion, which covers all of the charities we've been working with. Formally constituted non-profits with a board of trustees or similar, based in Gloucestershire, small to medium size, revenue no more than 1.5 million. So the mentee recruitment is through the GCF website. We'll be launching that live by tomorrow. There'll be a very, very light touch application process, 3 questions, just a little bit about yourselves. We will then put those applications together with our partner, our other 2 partners, partners and go through that selection process. So essentially what Marie's skill is providing the magic of matching a mentor and a mentee. Marie gets to know the mentors volunteering and the mentees coming through, and that very much matchmaking process of who she thinks will work well with who. So there'll be an initial scoping meeting with the Cranfield Trust, which is Marie, to identify the mentee's specific goals and objectives and look at the match with the mentor pool. So a project brief will be signed off by your board or management team, so it will need to be signed off by the organisation you're working for, and then you'll have an introduction to your mentor. I'll hand you over to Marie, who will talk through the mentoring process.
Thanks, Talitha. So we wanted to just give you a little glimpse of the mentoring process. We could talk for hours about this, because obviously there's a lot of art and science behind it. But essentially, just so that you know what to expect if you're interested in the programme, we generally recommend, and we will carry out 6 sessions of mentoring. So 1 session a month for 6 months. Of 60 to 90 minutes. So we're not saying you have to stop the clock at 60 minutes. If you need a little bit more time, that's fine. And because we're all working remotely at the moment, we can do this online quite flexibly. In fact, it works really well online. We were kind of nervous when everybody went into lockdown, but actually the experience has been that you can build that relationship online. We will issue you with our mentoring handbook. So the mentees and the mentors will be able to refer to the mentoring handbook as a guide. Cranfield Trust will check in regularly with the charity and with the volunteer to ensure that the project's progressing smoothly and you're having those good quality conversations. And at the end of the project, we'll have a wrap-up meeting just to kind of get your feedback, evaluate the impact of the scheme, and just find out what's worked for you. Did you meet your initial objectives? Did you find out something else? Did something else happen that was positive? And the outcomes can be quite varied. I mean, people have had more confidence with bids and applications for funding. People have grown their network. They've become more confident. It's amazing how many people tell us they have imposter syndrome. Despite being at the top of their game, they still feel like there's stuff that they don't know and support that they need. So we do get very good feedback, and we use that to improve the service at the next programme and also to improve the experience for the volunteer. So in a nutshell, mentors and what you can offer, if you're wondering what can you offer, it's really companionship on the mentee's professional journey, helping them to become the leader that they want to be. And this comes out very strongly in the video that we're going to see shortly. And it's an opportunity for the mentee to think through some issues, but it makes sure the mentee does the thinking. It's very mentee driven. It's not directional, and nobody's going to tell you how to do anything. It's not a football coach. It is you know, for you to have some space to figure out how you want to work out an issue you've got in your career or professional life. And the mentor is very much there to fulfill the mentee's performance expectations, and that at the end of the day benefits the organisations hugely and benefits the end beneficiaries. So it's good for Gloucestershire, it's good for the charities, it's good for all of us, good for society. So this is the only really sort of techie slide. So I'm keeping it short and sweet. It's just the fact that we put some formality around it was just to sort of give it some direction so that you can sit back and, yes, you know you've got 6 sessions, so you know you've got to establish a relationship, get started, you've got to clarify your objectives, but then there's a little bit in the middle where you do that learning, and that's, we've called that heightened mutual learning, because you will learn something as a mentee and a mentor. And you'll both benefit. And then you start thinking about winding up the project and next steps. What's going to happen next? What are the actions that you're going to take away? Do you need to develop more in particular areas, etc.? And the real ingredients we think for success are this willingness to change, to listen, and to learn. And there's no need for, if mentors are, if you're signing in thinking, I don't know if I've got the ability to be a mentor, you don't need to have all the answers, absolutely not. You just need to give advice when it's asked for. Otherwise, you just listen. The golden rule that we tend to use is that the mentee does 80% of the talking and the mentor does 20%. So if you get that ratio right, you're not going far wrong. enthusiasm always helps, openness, honesty, and just so that you know all your conversations are confidential. Nobody's writing a report at the end. There'll be no written report. Nobody needs to tell us anything that they've said in a session. We just need to know how the sessions make you feel, basically, rather than any of the detail. It's all confidential. The real key is that the mentor matching, as Talitha says, that's really important. That's why we generally onboard more mentors. We always onboard more mentors and mentees, because we need to make sure we do get that fit right. And setting expectations from the start. I always believe people need to know what to expect and what's expected of them, and I think this quite neatly does that. And I think, is that over to you now, Talitha?
Yes.
Yeah.
So our case study from the pilot programme is a film we're going to play just after this slide. Gemma Maidell's the Chief Exec of WHAM, and Helena Stamp is a volunteer mentor from the Honourable Company of Gloucestershire, and they were matched in the pilot programme. And it's just the most inspiring video, just seeing how that relationship developed and just the impact it had on Gemma and helping her drive her organisation forward, and actually the benefit that Helena felt being part of that process. So I will just go in and share this film with you. Depending on your broadband, it depends on the quality on the other end. If you haven't got great quality your end, this film will be made available on our website. So I will play this for you now.
I was really feeling like a bottleneck within the charity, and that I'd grown it to a certain stage, but everything was still funneling through me and my capacity was limited. So therefore the charity's growth was limited.
Very interested in helping other people. I've been around a while, on the track. You know, maybe I could just go and lend a listening ear and a helping hand.
My expectation wasn't that it would be quite as transformative as it was, because it was such a short amount of time in the grand scheme of things. But actually, that really surprised me how much of an impact it had on me. Just you have some support from outside the organisation, outside the sector even, because what I had in me at that point didn't feel like quite enough. To be able to process the challenges that I was facing, to have somebody that I could talk to and have a different perspective, perhaps, and help me grow as an individual and as a leader.
Sort of outside person has nothing, no judgment
Exactly.
as to what should happen or what shouldn't happen. It's just a space in which to explore those possibilities.
Yes, yeah, and it wasn't a role of somebody telling me what I should be doing, but actually somebody helping me unlock inside me, you know, what I knew I should be doing, but having the confidence and the capacity to actually follow through on that, I think. When you're in a place of feeling that you're overwhelmed, your mind is going crazy, and it's very difficult sometimes to filter out what you actually need to focus on. And so the way that you approached those meetings with actually the purpose of this conversation is around this, and it wasn't that was a rigid structure that wasn't flexible according to what was going on, but it was a really helpful place for me to actually step out of the chaos that I felt I was in at the time.
In talking about it and somebody else reflecting, I think you kind of then worked out which was the important aspect that needed attention right now. What was the main focus? Where do I really need to put my efforts? I've got all these things I could be involved in, but actually where do I need to really focus my efforts now?
I think the qualities that I really appreciated that you brought to our time together was the non-judgmental listening. At no point did I ever feel that there was a right or a wrong answer or statement that I was making. Your capacity to just hold what I was bringing to you and not feel that you needed to fix it or tell me what I should be doing, even if maybe you were thinking that inside. And just the freedom to be vulnerable. You were completely external, not just to my organisation, but also to the sector that I work in. Knowing that you were sat there with a very different perspective, an ability to see through what I was bringing to you. I think I described it a little bit like a rucksack on my back that was full of stuff, and every now and again something else would be put in the back, and our time together was a bit like sitting down with you, taking that rucksack off, and one by one taking things out, having a look. You may be asking me a few questions about why it was in there, what purpose it served, and me deciding did I want to put it back in or not. And gradually over the process, my rucksack got a lot lighter, and by the end of the 6 months, it was substantially lighter and felt more purposeful. You know? And I knew what was in there, more importantly, rather than just carrying around a load of things that I didn't necessarily need or were weighing me down.
You felt always that you were the expert, you know, and there was no way. I mean, when someone has a problem, we can roll into a fix-it mode, but I was really conscious of the fact that I didn't know everything. You were bringing me a précis version of what was going on, and it was really, really special being part of that. So thank you for letting me walk alongside for those few months.
Thank you.
It was just such a joy to see the relationship that was developed in such a short period of time. And the lockdown, there was a first meeting of both Gemma and Helena, and after that it was all online. So it's been really transformative to be able to continue working through lockdown. So I hope that it's been an inspirational film to watch. It will be loaded up and able to visit it after this session. I'm just going to go back into slides. So next, Andrew Table's going to talk through volunteering as an incredible volunteer himself and the rewards that it's brought him and the impact that he's had with his volunteering roles. I'll hand over to you, Andrew. I think you might be on mute.
Right, I should really learn. I've learned by now. But the film really says it all. It's a very, very powerful message of how effective mentoring and volunteering can be. Well, we all have our own experiences to bring to bear, and as the film showed, Helena's experience was from outside the charitable sector, and therefore she brought a fresh pair of eyes to Gemma's organisation. And I think that is an extremely useful element. A volunteer can improve the skill set that they have. And I think a lot of us want to keep on learning. And so actually improving one's skill set is an extremely useful thing. One thing, I found, I was very lucky to be High Sheriff 3 years ago. And in that process, I got to know my local community far, far better than I ever had before. And I think, if you get involved in a charity, a local charity, you will get to know your local community more, see what makes it tick, to see what's under the surface that, just round the corner from you, see what's under the surface. And sometimes it's not very attractive viewing, but we can do things about that. And finally, we've been very lucky. Many of us have been very lucky in our lives. And it's time to give something back. And giving something back locally, I think is a powerful message. So I'll now hand over to Lisa.
Thank you. So benefits to the organisation. So as Marie talks about this being a real self-development piece for the individual, there is obviously an impact on the individual and their self-development, but also the organisation they're working with. So I guess the immediate impact is about having somebody with expertise and that critical friend, increased motivation and aspiration, as Gemma's journey of feeling there was so much going on in her organisation that it just helped gain that sort of clarity and lighten the load. And then through that, you become, you know, that increased motivation and aspiration. So there's a real personal journey to be gained. And then the future impact and legacy, I guess, comes from the impact you're going to have on your organisation. So there's some real game-changing improvements there that work, you know, the old adage of working smarter, not harder, around the increased organisational strength. Because what we're trying to do is support organisations into the future. This is a really tough time. It's been such a tough year to help navigate now and into the future, and where you're wanting to take your organisations, and improving and increasing your funding opportunities. You know, that it's really hard running an organisation and being hands-on and trying to think about how to raise funds and spend the time being able to do that at the same time as growing and developing your organisation. So there's an enormous benefit, not just to the individual, but to your organisation. Benefits to the individual, Marie, I think you were going to go over, just because you've seen so many of these relationships and just, you know, the change in those individuals over the 6 months.
Yeah, and I'll do this on both sides for the mentor and the mentee, because as we said, it's a good learning experience for everybody. Mentors often come to us and say, I just listened, I just turned up, I just showed up and I just listened. I can't remember doing anything special. And we often say, well, actually, that's really good in itself. That's really, really positive in yourself that you've shown up. And mentees will often just tell us how transformative the experience has been. And you know, the film we just saw with Gemma and Helena is quite common. It's more common than you think, that there's some real genuine challenges that are overcome. There's confidence building, obviously, skills development, some very practical hands-on stuff, some insights that you're getting from outside, some perspectives that you're getting from outside, and being able to identify gaps in your own knowledge, because notoriously charities don't have the budget for learning and development that they should. You know, they struggle to find time and funds, because their funds are so committed to the cause. So it's difficult for people to get the leadership training that they need and deserve. For the mentor, obviously the benefits there, as Andrew has articulated, giving back to the community, and then acquiring that diversity of experience, learning about the voluntary sector if you don't already know the voluntary sector. And I know a lot of people have a lifetime connection with the sector, and other people have not had time in their career to do that. And just developing an appreciation of the charitable activity that's happening on your doorstep. That's really important. And I think a final slide. Obviously, this is part of a bigger programme. I think Talitha has branded the leadership, the Gloucestershire Charity Leaders programme is big and much more far-reaching. This is just the first element of it, the mentoring programme. And we intend to follow up the support on this programme with establishing some peer-to-peer forums for the leaders so that they can meet each other. It may be online, hopefully one day it will be face-to-face, but the idea is to give peer support to each other. They've been through the same process, been on the programme together. They can talk about what they've learned, the impacts and outcomes and so on. And also these forums, we run these forums already across the UK, and they're an opportunity for peer charity leaders to get together and reflect on things in a safe environment. They're facilitated by a Cranfield Trust facilitator. The participants get to share a challenge. Maybe every time they meet, they share a different challenge. Each of them will submit a challenge that they want to talk about with their peers. And it's a great way of just getting to the bottom of an issue, getting that support from each other, perhaps rehearsing or trying out something before you try it out in real life. And it's that non-judgmental environment really that we want to nurture and support. So if you're wondering, well, what happens after the mentoring program, that's an example of how we can follow up and support after the programme is complete.
Brilliant, thanks, Marie. And I think through our research, it really did come through that piece around wanting support in terms of collaborative opportunities with other organisations and partnership working. So this will be a wonderful cohort of 10 charity leaders being able to develop their networks. So a really important piece of work. So just to move on to next steps, we've just come to the end. So the next steps, becoming a mentee. If you go on to the GCF website under the news page, the application process will be on there. Really simple, just fill out a little form and send it back. And then becoming a mentor, if you're interested in becoming a mentor and volunteering, please could you email Andrew Tabor at csg@oncogloss.org, but we'll send out some information after this as well, just to clarify. So next steps, and we just want to really say an enormous thank you to our sponsors so far who've made this launch possible. So the Great Western Railway and John Lewis. And what's interesting about those two organisations is people development at the heart of those organisations. They really value the development of their staff and their organisation, hence why they feel this is an incredibly valuable programme. And they not only develop their own staff and organisations, they also like to really feel part of the community. John Lewis and Cheltenham, who have supported us, do an awful lot to support their community, as well as Great Western Railway do a lot to support community as well. So we're absolutely thrilled that these two wonderful organisations have supported the launch of this programme. So we're in good time, and I'm hoping there'll be some good questions, and we can open up the questions. I'm going to come out of this slide sharing and come back to a normal screen, and we'll start opening up any questions that anyone has on any of the content or to any individuals. We've also got Gemma and Helena that hopefully is still with us, and maybe they'd like to say a thing or two. So I'll stop sharing and come back to you all. So I hope you found that really insightful and interesting, but obviously there's going to be questions. So let me just have a read on here. What have we got? Thank you for looks very, I look forward to watching. Any questions? We're going to promote the opportunity. Andrew and Marie, can you see any questions that are coming through? I think they're more comments. So anyone want to put their hand up and we can take some direct questions?
I've got one to lead, if that's okay.
Hi there, Bren.
Hi, Bren.
So apologies to everyone that I'm coming onto this late or whatever. Really, I was with the Race and Health Observatory nationally, looking at how we better support our diverse communities across the country. So really apologies. I was also part of a pilot with the NHS on peer mentoring. So we looked at how we would do that with NHS directors and whatever. And one thing that I didn't see in the presentation, but certainly it came through really clear, and that is it gives hope. Yeah. So when we're talking about times that we're in, and we need to be honest to say that, you know, the times aren't going to always get easier. In my view, I think they might get tougher sometimes as well in certain areas, is we've got to look at platforms, plural, about how we support people in the hope. And one of the things that certainly when we were doing the peer mentoring as the pilot, really, the person I was doing it with really said, wow, flipping heck, do you know what? I've got hope to go back to now, really, you know. And the other thing that was really clear and reinforced to us on the pilot was the differentiation between mentoring and coaching, really, as well. So where you cross that line in terms of coaching, as opposed to actually you keep it to mentoring. So they were just a few thoughts, really.
Lovely.
The other thing I picked up, which I think, you know, in terms of resource, because I think sometimes that's really good, you go away, you might have some handouts, but I really liked, and I'll send it on to Letha, something called Mentoring Pocketbook, 4th edition by Jeff Alfred and Bob Garvey, really. And it's really good because you can just flip it open and it reinforces some of the things that you learn, so some of the things you might not learn. So I guess my offer as a thought really is certainly from the NHS pilot on mentoring is that you came away with a little resource you could keep close as well, really. Yeah. So I'll send it on to you, but that's really helpful.
Really appreciated. Thank you, Brent.
Yeah, and we're going to, and I've been invited to nationally chair the mentoring program for the NHS at the moment, just to make sure that we go forward with the best states and whatever, really.
And in partnership working, it's always good for us to share if there's other programs going on and other learning that we'll definitely catch up offline. Thank you, Bren. Now there's 3 more. I think I've got Tom Frost, and then I've got Rob Fountain, and then Amy Malcolm.
Just a simple question. How much advance knowledge is the mentor given of the mentee's charity in advance of their get-together?
Marie?
I can answer that. Yes, what we do, but my scoping meeting with the organisation, with the mentee, will just involve a little bit of background about the charity, who they are, the mentee's role, what their goals and objectives are, and why they've come to us for mentoring at this point. So all that will be available to you. And I also ask the mentors to write a very short biography of themselves, a couple of lines, just to sort of summarise who they are, what they do, what their background is. And we use that also to introduce you to a potential mentee. So part of the matching is, it's a little bit like dating, really, a little bit of a sort of introduction to each other before you meet. And it's also possible to just have a quick online meeting just to see if the chemistry's there, if the fit is there. It's important to get the right fit. So yes, there will be a certain amount of information shared. You won't be thrown in cold.
Thanks.
I like to think that hope. I like a little bit about hope there. It is very much about sort of giving mentees the opportunity at this very difficult time to have someone to talk to, and a sounding board and an outside bit of support. Yeah.
Thank you. Rob?
Yeah, hi, thanks Talitha. Thanks, a really helpful presentation and a great programme, both from being a charity leader. I'm Chief Exec with Age UK Gloucestershire, but also thinking about the potential for older people to contribute as mentors. And we'd be very keen to promote this around our networks for older people to have a sense of purpose, a real meaningful role that they can play in their communities. But the one risk that I can see in that is the danger that we stoke a load of people up who go, I'd really like to contribute, but then they run into the issue of not being needed because there are too many people coming forward, and you know you're looking at 10 mentees, and I know you need a bigger pool, but if people come forward and they're not needed because of numbers, or that their skill sets are not somehow seen to be what's going to be needed, I'm just cautious of how we tread that line between balancing saying to people your skills and experience are really valuable, but actually you may not be needed if we come through. I don't know how we might balance that so we don't overpromise.
Yeah, good point. So essentially we're looking at running a 5-year program. So we do need 50 mentors and 50 mentees. That's the piece that we want to be able to support. We don't want to just run it for 1 year. So it's not as easy to recruit as you might think. You know, there's a process of people understanding the program, what value, whether they're a mentor or a mentee. So I would say if there is anyone who comes forward to want to mentor, the Cranfield Trust has an awful lot of charities in the waiting, so external from Gloucestershire. So I hope that we can support all Gloucester charities that come forward. If we do go over 10, then we just have to find some more funding and maybe look for more capacity. So there is room to grow. At the moment, we obviously have done the pilot program, which was 6 mentors and mentees. We've now set up the formal one this year for 10. We didn't want to be too over ambitious, but there is room to grow this year if we need to, and felt there was real value in doing that. And secondly, if there are fantastic mentors coming forward and offering their support, I'm sure the Cranfield Trust could probably keep them busy. Marie?
Yeah, absolutely. Or we can signpost them to other organisations. If they're looking to be more involved in a charity, it may be appropriate to become a trustee or a governor, or a director of a charity. Yeah.
Does that help, Rob?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Really
Amy. And then Carol.
Thank you very much, Talitha and Jamie and Marie. That was really interesting presentation, and mentoring is massively important in our sector. So thank you very much for the efforts, and the success of this programme, I'm sure, is going to be huge. I'm a mentor for the Chartered Institute of Fundraising, not this year, but I have been, and I can recommend it to everyone as they're coming up in their career or at a crossroads in their career. I currently work for Cotswold Canal Trust. I'm sure most people know of us and our capital campaign recently, which skews our accounts quite drastically because we've got a lot of money from Highways England sitting on our bank account currently. Our normal turnover is less than 500,000. And I wondered, for organisations like ours, which are vital to the sector, vital to the area, and doing so much for the community, whether our senior staff or of our charity and charities like ours have any leeway on the criteria.
Absolutely. I mean, we're going to come across anomalies. So one to take offline and have a chat through. We've just got to be very focused on our grassroots and small communities. Mainly because of what Marie says. If you've come from the business sector, you know, I was fortunate enough to come from the business sector and have an MBA paid for by my organisation and have all these lovely opportunities to grow. And I think coming into the third sector, I soon realised just how little money or development opportunities there were for our incredible leaders doing the most incredible job. So for me, I think it's really important. It's for those who really aren't going to get the opportunity to have development, whether they're in small organisations, then there's no budget and no capacity to do that. If there are larger organisations, we'll probably have a bit more access to development. We just have to keep it focused on those who aren't going to necessarily get those opportunities. So I think one to take offline and for us to have a look at. But as a community foundation, we are very focused on those small organisations. But as you say, if you've got a £500,000 turnover normally, let's have a look at it. And
that's fantastic. Thank you, Talitha.
Pleasure. Carol?
Hi, I'm Carol Boydell. So as well as being a member of the Honourable Company of Gloucestershire, I'm also chair of a very small not-for-profit group. It's Carinium Radio. And what I'm really interested in finding out is about the sustainability of the project as a whole. And particularly, I'm interested in cascade learning. So if you take a charity leader, and obviously as a mentee, they're growing and the mentor is growing, but how can the charity leader, who is the mentee, how can that those principles of learning be perhaps instilled and cascade down, further down into the organisation?
Marie, you're probably a good one to come in here. I mean, I could probably back you up in terms of that individual and the learning that goes on and the impact on their organisation. What we hope is a legacy piece, and the reason why we want to really develop this 5-year programme, which is why we want to fund this 5-year programme, is to think about the strength of 50 mentors and mentees in our community and the reach and the network and the strength that will spread across. So Marie, probably in terms of thinking about that longer term piece and that cascading of knowledge and information and networking, your view on that. The Cranfield Trust support about 4,000 charities currently across the country, so they're very, very experienced in looking at this piece. So I'll pass over to Marie on this one.
Yeah, I guess one of the topics that could be covered in the peer-to-peer support sessions, the forums at the end of the process, would be about how to share that learning among your organisations and ensure that you bring somebody else on, that you develop your people under you in a similar way, and you find opportunities for them to grow. In small organisations, often there's not a huge, paid staff network or even network of volunteers. It can be quite small, but those people are very key. So yeah, it's absolutely about making those organisations sustainable, looking for succession planning in a lot of cases, or developing people underneath them. That's quite common that we see charity CEOs just doing everything or doing too much, not knowing how to delegate and not realising actually delegation is the key to developing people under them and passing that learning on. And we'll encourage people to be, there's no shame about this mentoring. It's not that they're lacking anything, that they need to be taught anything, but I think that, if people are open about having a mentor, and that they share, not the detail of what they're talking about, but some of the learning, that's absolutely fine, and we encourage that.
Next, Ismail. I think your hand.
Hiya.
Hello.
Hiya. Just wondering, could I ask, you say you're funding it for the next 5 years, or there's a group of funders. Would you be able to share who the funders or where the source of that funding is, so it's applicable to different people or a diverse range of people who have different requirements around funding?
Yes, so at the moment, the two main funders are the sponsors we've spoken about, which are GWR and John Lewis. And we're obviously wanting to engage with other sponsors in our county. So all of the sponsors will be promoted. So you'll have a transparent way of looking at where the funding's coming from.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other hands up? Have I missed anybody? If I've missed anyone, do come off mute and give me a shout.
Hello, Karen here, Karen Morgan. I had a quick one.
Oh, hello, Karen.
It's to do with a time scale. I quite understand the structure, and I can see that it's a good thing to have a beginning and a middle and an end. But what about after that's finished? This is something from my own experience. I have two mentees, I suppose, rather less formally than perhaps is envisaged here. And really, something new comes up or something difficult comes up. They tend to come back to me and say, can we have a chat about this? And of course, I always say yes. I mean, these people have developed into really quite close friends as a result of that. I mean, an example of that the other day, one of them came back and said, well, I've got nobody else to talk to about this. So what's the kind of guidance there, perhaps, Marie?
Well, we would say there's nothing to stop you. If you're willing and able and available to continue to support somebody, obviously within reason, then that's fine. You know, the connections are sometimes connections for life, absolutely. And, you know, there are people famously have had a mentor for their whole adult life. I mean, I think Oprah Winfrey still has the mentor she had in her teens. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But equally, you know, if it's a successful relationship can just end there and you may never hear from your mentee again. There are lots of ways of measuring it, but if people feel they need to and they're available to stay on in touch, then that's fine by us. But also, we can take that on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Anybody else we've missed out?
Marcus has got a question.
Ah, Marcus.
Oh, thanks very much. Marcus Green.
Hello, Marcus.
Hello, I'm Chief Executive of Action on Preeclampsia. And just a quick question or quick take from what we've seen today. This seems to be aimed at getting mentors from outside the sector for mentees in the sector. Are we looking for any peer-to-peer? So people, chief execs who have got time and flexibility to offer some mentoring, or is it purely for people from outside the sector, please? Thank you.
Thank you. No, absolutely. Mentors are mentors. I guess the encouragement is not just encouraging people within our sector to work together, but trying to bring sectors together. So absolutely, if you're an experienced chief exec and you have time and you can support somebody, please do come forward. I'm sure, you know, having someone with sector experience is also hugely valuable. So absolutely. I just wanted to, if I've come to the end of any questions, and while people maybe are thinking in the last couple of minutes of any last suggestions or thoughts, I just wanted to bring in Gemma Maidel, actually, so put you on the spot. And a little bit, you've watched the film. I think this was Gemma's first time watching the film, which was lovely, I'm sure, to see yourself. But just a little bit about the impact, I think, on you and the organisation. I think you talked about that confidence building and just some of the things you may not have done before you're doing now. Just a little bit about maybe something from yourself. I don't know if Helen is still with us. I know she's on a training day and I think she's possibly had to go. So Gemma, would you like to just sum up for us?
Yeah, sure. It was interesting, one of the questions actually about the impact, the cascaded learning, you know, throughout the organisation. And I think for me, that's been really evident, not because I've sat everyone down and told them what I've learned, but just because of the way that I've been behaving in my role. And that has, I can see the impact that's had on everybody else and the releasing impact it's had on other people, I think, to step into their roles more effectively. So I think that ongoing process is really evident. for me, and will continue to be. And just the network of GCF as well has been really important for me in continued development. So I just think if there's anybody out there who's thinking, should I, shouldn't I, just do it, because it's been so helpful, and it's not a huge amount of time, even though it feels like it initially. It's such valuable time, and it's really made a difference to me personally. I feel like I've got myself back within my role as well. So
brilliant. Thanks, Gemma. I think we're absolutely on time today. We've said we'll finish at 2 o'clock. So please do pop us an email or get in touch if there's anything else. We'll load everything up and launch it on our website at GCF website. And thank you all so much for joining us today. I hope you found that interesting, and looking forward to any of you getting in touch in any capacity around mentoring as a mentee or a mentor. Thank you all so much for today. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.